The country is a hotbed for racial injustice, unfair treatment, and unequitable treatment. And to use that to allude to, oh, I'm having a threesome or whatever the case is with this married couple, it's messy. To use that to talk about your ex-girlfriend is messy. To use that to talk about how the fact that you feel like black people are trying to create this black power movement is messy. So either you are at the table with us or you on the menu, my nigga. And right now, to me, I'm putting Terry Crews, I'm putting August Alsina, and I'm putting Meek Mill on the fucking menu this week. Let's take a break and let's come back and set the table, baby. Rich soil for your ass. And we are back. So, we go through this every week where you and I get together, we have a little chat bout, we talk people, and then we decide on how we're going to set the table for ourselves this week. What are we going to do? And so this week, because I'm always trying to keep it real with y'all, I have been struggling with something lately. And this has been a theme that has occurred through countless therapy sessions for me. And, as I approach 41 years old, has existed for me for most of my life. I have true abandonment and isolation issues. My ability to let go sometimes is very hard. I constantly view some of my relationships with the context of the potential is better than the problem, which has often served to be problematic for me because you start to view any relationship that you're in from a very romanticist standpoint when you start to only look at the potential in terms of your history, or in terms of the way that the relationship existed, looking at the potential, but never really truly looking at the problem. So as I kind of went through this whole COVID situation, I talked about how, I reconnected with my ex. And this is someone who we had a very short but spicy relationship, 2 years ago, which ended very tragically. And, it's a wonder that I would even be back in a place where I would seemingly get back into a relationship with him. Now, let me just say this. All of those things are true. He is potentially, I view him as, and I can say this to you without, I'm sure there'll be judgment, but I view him as potentially the love of my life as it stands right now. You ever met someone and there is an electricity between you that is unlike any other relationship you've ever had before? That was us. That is us. I understand him and vice versa on a level that is perhaps one that I've never experienced or I've not experienced aside from people who actually share my DNA, And so needless to say, COVID went into isolation, went into loneliness, which led to a craving of intimacy. Now, I don't want to say that COVID is the only reason why I got into this relationship again. I think I manifested this person. When I wasn't with him, I thought about him all the time. I thought about what it would be like for us to be together. I even spoke to that reality in my head. A lot of times the relationship kind of had me playing back the highlights and not the fights. Immersing myself in the fantasy and not the reality. I had to quickly, kind of through the last 90 days, accept the fact that I was coming from an understanding that didn't allow me to make a different choice at the time. I consider myself to be soil, right? Now, most of you may be asking, what do I mean by that? Well, I feel like what I've been viewing my life through lately is the idea that, like soil, I have to be provided with a habitat that is consistent to yielding high quality results. Now, fertile soil is 1000% necessary for you to reap the benefits of what it grows. You have to have the presence of certain microorganisms. You have to aggregate your soil. There has to be a sufficient amount of depth that is there for root growth and for water retention. And so a lot of times when I think about myself in terms of, where I want to be and what am I setting the table for right now in my life, I am setting the table for deep root growth. It is only through the absence of toxic substances where you can have the most fertile soil. The ability to supply a plant with essential nutrients and water and adequate amounts is necessary for plant growth and reproduction. So I've gotten to a place where it is necessary for me to establish adequate root growth and soil depth in order for me to manifest what I'd like to see happen in my life. So I had to tell myself, okay, girl, you need to really walking away from this relationship is, for me to just say that is difficult is an understatement. He and I are the type that we immerse ourselves in each other in a way that is toxic, spending hours with each other, talking to each other all day, even when we're not with each other, just truly immersing ourselves in one another. And so I know that there are people like me out there who are going through the case of the ex. Should they call? Should you send that text? Well, it depends. Are you trying to be rich, fertile soil, or are you just trying to be topsoil? You have to have the right ingredients to support your growth. So there are things that I had to kind of give prudence to when thinking about this week after I had blocked him because of the toxic behavior. I started to feel that feeling again. I started to feel that craving again, like, oh man, I miss him so much. And missing your ex is okay. Don't deny that feeling. I am a huge fan of The Angry Therapist. And if you're not familiar, he has a podcast available on iTunes. But, one of the things that The Angry Therapist talked about in terms of how do you break away from your ex, or how do you build up enough strength to not get involved in that relationship again, was he told the story about how for years And it started when he was a kid. He always felt like he craved something sweet even after he ate his dinner. Like at the end of the night, he just had this feeling like he craved something sweet. And, he can recall where it came from, even as a youngster, coming from the idea that his parents, would stockpile his home with Twinkies and ding dongs and ho-hos. And it just kind of became the place where his homies came to hang out because all of this bad food was there. And so even as an adult, he still craved something sweet after his dinner, a bowl of cereal, a chocolate bar, some ice cream, something. And one day he had to kind of observe that and feel, am I really craving something sweet, or is this just me kind of going off of what I've always done? So how do you sit with the feelings of an ex, a case of the ex? How do you kind of dig into your rich soil and decide, hey, is getting back with this person something that I really need to do? Is being in communication with this person something that I really need to do? So here are 3 things that you should contemplate before you text your ex. Now, first, remind yourself why it didn't work out. Don't play the romance, play the documentary. Now, it's important to note that there's nothing wrong with you getting back with your ex. You know what I mean? But if you guys broke up in the first place because there was a schism between you, because either you or your partner failed to exhibit behavior that was the right environment for you guys to flourish, then really you're playing back the highlights and not the fights. You're immersing yourself in the fantasy and not the reality. The question you need to ask is, has this person changed intrinsically? Because if they haven't, the dynamic between you two will remain the same. And you'll find yourself right back to loving the potential and foregoing the problem. Now, number 2, you got to sit with your feelings. I don't have a problem with feeling anything. I'm not one of those people, and I used to be one of those people that stuffed my feelings down because, I didn't want to feel things. So if I felt like I got this feeling that I missed my ex, I would be like, oh, no, fuck that shit. Fuck that nigga. I don't miss that nigga. And so then I would get into some other destructive behavior because I wasn't allowing myself to feel my feelings. Feel your feelings. It's okay. It's okay to love someone. It's okay to miss someone. The thing you have to understand with feeling those feelings is the craving passes. You ever been out drinking? Now I'm going to tell on myself, but sometimes when I drink a lot, I crave nicotine. I want a cigarette. And it is one of those feelings like I don't feel like I want a cigarette on an everyday basis. I'm not a smoker. I'm not buying a $14 pack of cigarettes. You know what I mean? But there are times where that nicotine just makes me feel like, what will be good? The cool menthol stylings of a Stogue, But the craving passes. So that's all you have to do is sit with your feelings for a while. I think some of us are so ready to get on to the next and do the next thing that sometimes we don't even allow ourselves to be present in the moment. Sit in it, stew in it. Because that's the only way that the craving is going to pass. Then you have to decide, this feeling that I'm feeling, where is it coming from? Why is it that I'm romanticizing about this person in this current moment? Is it loneliness? Is it fear? Is it desperation? Is it panics? Is it the what ifs? What if I never find somebody to love me like this? What if I never find a nigga who's this fine again? What if I never have a friend who understands me the way that this person understands me? What if I never have this kind of love ever again? And I'm speaking specifically about my ex, but this could be anybody. This could be a friendship. This could be a family member that you've had to put on